The Jewish National Fund, or in Hebrew, Karen Kayemet Yisrael, is a nonprofit organization famous for its work to develop the land of Israel over more than the past century. It's most popularly associated with tree planting here, but of course it does far, far more than that. In fact, controlling some 13% of Israel's territory. Now, one area where the JNF has tread more cautiously for both political reasons and, in some cases, foreign tax laws is the West Bank. But the organization is now moving to enact a new policy and begin purchasing private Palestinian land into historical Judea and Samaria in order to expand existing Israeli settlements there. Now, the JNF's executive committee gave the move preliminary approval on Sunday, but there is opposition, including the reform movement in the U.S. and in Israel, which said it may petition Israel's Supreme Court to block the plan. Well, joining us now to discuss this issue is in studio Rabbi Gilad Kariv. He is a member of the World Zionist Organization's board, a president of the Reform Movement in Israel, now a candidate for Israeli parliament for the Labour Party. And also joining us from the JNF is Russell Robinson. He's the CEO of the Jewish National Fund USA, speaking to us from New York. And Russell, I'm going to start with you. We should note at the start that JNF has sponsored, funded some projects in the West Bank over the years, but this is a new policy. Why is it considering to make this change now, especially now, let's say?
Well, thank you. And the reason I wanted to come on is that there's a difference between the Karen Kayemet in Israel, who made those decisions and is making those kind of moves, and the Jewish National Fund USA, which is a separate organization. Our work has been on 60% of the land of Israel in the Negev and 17% of the land in the Galilee. And that's where we spend 99% of our work in Israel at, and that's where we have been working. And the rabbi who is on sits at those tables of the WZO and the Karen Kayemet.
Okay, but I'm asking you, you are still part of the JNF Karen Kayemet. I'm asking you why, though, the board of the Karen Kayemet is deciding to make this move now.
No, I'm not part of it. So the Jewish National Fund USA has no seat on the Karen Kayemet, and the Karen Kayemet has no seat on the Jewish National Fund USA. Two separate organizations and make their own decisions and make their own funding decisions and implementation of project decisions through the WZO and the Karen Kayemet, the Jewish Agency, all of them together. That is the organizations that are making those decisions.
Okay, so I want to be clear. No money that goes to the Jewish National Fund is going to the Karen Kayemet that could be used for these purposes?
None at all.
All right. I have to ask then, Rabbi Kariv, why are you opposing this decision by the Karen Kayemet Yisrael?
First of all, shalom, Russell. I want to refer to the important comments made by Mr. Robinson. There is a reason why it is important for JNF-USA to make it clear that this decision has nothing to do with the work of JNF-USA. Mainly because the vast majority of Jews outside Israel and half of the Jewish population in Israel don't want to see an expansion of the settlements. And there are two main reasons why we oppose this move of the new leadership of Kakal. First, because according to the bylaws of Kakal and JNF, JNF can purchase lands only in those territories that are under the direct jurisdiction of the Israeli government. And the territories are not under this jurisdiction. More important, we have a sacred duty to keep a wide Jewish Zionist consensus around the work of the national institutions. One of the most divisive questions in Israel and around the Jewish world is the issue of the territories and the settlements. And there is no need, with all the social issues that we are facing inside sovereign Israel, to split the Zionist movement around purchasing lands in the territories. If the Israeli government wants to expand the territories, it needs to do it directly. This government, our government, cannot use the national institutions as a tool, as a long arm to implement its right-wing policies if we want to keep this wide Zionist table.
Right. Russell, the fact that you want to come on here and make that clarification, I think, indicates you have some concern that this decision by Karen Kayemet Israel could impact on the JNF in the United States. Is that correct?
Well, look, and I wanted to make a clarification because I think it's important to clarify the two separate organizations. But I do think that it's part of what exactly, even what the rabbi was talking about, the vast majority of Jews in the diaspora want to talk about our future. The vast majority of the Jews in the diaspora want to talk about our common destiny. They want to connect not to the hallways of the Knesset. They want to connect to the streets of Beersheba and Kiryat Shemona. And our conversation in the national institutions has to become more of a conversation of what the Jewish people really are looking for. And if we care about the next generation and the generation yet unborn, let's bring the new conversation together, the conversation about our shared values and our common destiny.
But is that conversation not happening? Do you think that in Israel, the Israeli side of that conversation has to be more in tune to those concerns in the diaspora?
100%. It's not happening because everybody in the national institutions in Israel think that we're consumed, in the national leadership of Jewish organizations, even in the diaspora, consumed with hallways of the Knesset conversations or hallways in the Congress, where I'm telling you our 600,000 partners, not donors, are consumed with being involved with the communities in the Negev and the Galilee. They could tell you who the mayor of Kiryat Shemona is. They could tell you where in Akko programs are. They can tell you what's happening in Beersheba. We're building right now, we're planning the largest venture in the Jewish world today, a 20-acre Zionist village to be built in Beersheba to bring in Jews from not about right or left or diaspora Israel, from Barcelona to Birmingham, Alabama, to talk about Jewish common destiny.
All right. Well, Gilad, let me ask you, are you concerned, you're in the board of the World Zionist Organization, that this kind of decision here in Israel could impact on an organization like the JNF globally?
Definitely. Look, first we need to say that the situation that we have in the States, that we are talking about two separated organizations. This is not the case with other countries around the world. And in those countries, the work of JNF is directed by the offices in Jerusalem. And it's clear to us that if Kakal, Keren Kayemet Israel, the JNF, will be deeply involved with purchasing lands across the Green Line, we will lose the support of many partners of JNF inside the Jewish community and outside the Jewish community. And as Mr. Robinson said, we are facing so many joint challenges that we don't need to bring the burning political debate here in Israel into the corridors of the national institutions. And I'm deeply troubled by the fact that the extreme right, with the support of the current Israeli government, with the support of Prime Minister Netanyahu, are actually trying to hijack Keren Kayemet Israel and use it again as an arm.
Their argument is that these communities are part of Israel. These are communities where Israelis live.
I agree
the JNF has been involved, and we've even heard it in other communities where Israelis lived in periphery, and they define this as the periphery of Israel.
First of all, I fully agree with you that there are Israeli citizens that are living across the Green Line in Judea and Samaria. It doesn't change the fact that this is not part of sovereign Israel. There is a clear definition. Look, this current government didn't implement the plan for unilateral annexation. Prime Minister Netanyahu kept, during his 12 years as a prime minister, kept the definition of what is sovereign Israel and what are the territories. Now, we need to understand, we are not talking about collaboration between JNF and the Jewish municipalities in the territories to promote environmental projects. We are talking about a specific element of purchasing Palestinian private lands with the financial resources of the entire Jewish people in order to expand the settlements. This is the debate. And the fact that the right-wing players in JNF are saying, well, they are Israeli citizens. We all know they are Israeli citizens. My tax money goes also to support the social services in those communities. But when it comes to purchasing lands, Palestinian lands, with a clear attempt to make any future political solution between us and the Palestinians more challenging or more distant, this is not the role of JNF. And we need to keep the Zionist Jewish tent wide as much as we can. And by taking those partisan decisions and allowing extreme forces to set the agenda for the national institution, we're actually cutting the branch of tree that we are using in order to sit together. And again, I think that the current leadership of JNF is using the fact that we are heading towards national elections in Israel. They are using the fact that we're at the beginning of a new era in the relations between Israel and the American administration, and they are trying to use this challenging moment in order to set facts on ground. And it's not only about the reform movement. It's the reform movement, it's the conservative movement, it's the labor Zionist world movement, it's Meretz, it's Yesh Atid, Yair Lapid's party, it's blue and white. Actually, the vast majority of Jewish organizations in North America support a two-state solution and are against the expansion of settlements.
I just want to ask Russell, you came in to make this clarification. Have you found yourself in the position of having to make this clarification to some of your donors in the last few days, given the headlines this decision has produced?
So we've made this clarification over and over, and of course there's been people who have called us both pro and against. I always look at it as the great opportunity, because people who come and express an opinion have a love. And so I'm just telling you that the vast majority of Jews in the diaspora want to hear about a water technology that is created by a place called Israel that makes the world a better place. They want to talk about the people that are in the small businesses in the Western Galilee who are producing products that are the part and the backbone of the Western Galilee. They want to talk about the Arava and about people who live in the Gaza envelope and in Beersheba. And this conversation is important for the politics. Mm-hmm. For the Jewish future, the important conversation is our common destiny.
And just very briefly, just in a couple of seconds, Gad, if this goes to, is this something that Israel's Supreme Court or High Court of Justice can decide on if it goes to that?
As I said, we strongly believe that this decision violates the bylaws of Kakal itself, of JNF itself. And we will go first to the district court in order to prevent it, and then to the Supreme Court. But more important, before we'll go to the court, there will be a vote in the JNF International Board.
Right.
Hadassah is represented there.
Right.
Witzo is represented there.
Right.
They bring,
I did mention, right.
We need them to support a wide Zionist Jewish consensus.
Okay, Rabbi Gilad Kariv and Russell Robinson, thank you for joining us on I24 News.